The Sony FX5 has just been announced and is available for pre-order. There's some really important things that I think they're missing in this camera that may or may not keep me from buying it, that may keep you from wanting to buy it. So we're gonna get to all of that stuff. And then of course, as always, as we work our way through this, I'm just gonna kind of give you my general thoughts on this camera. Very interesting camera with a ton of incredible specs and a couple real disappointing things. Hey everyone, I'm Cole Caparoon. Thank you for stopping by the Aperture Life for another video. This one's gonna be pretty informal. I've got a ton of notes because boy, is there a lot to this camera. So in front of me, I have the FX3, the A7 IV, and the A7R6. All of these play a role in choosing whether or not you should buy the FX5, and all of them have something to do with the FX5, which is very interesting. Okay, this has an all-new 16.6 megapixel fully stacked sensor. Now, what's interesting about this is, according to Gerald Undone, it is the exact same sensor as the A7R6 at 66.8 megapixels. But the A7R6 has 8K, and the FX5 only has 5K in open gate. We're gonna get back to that because that's a very, very interesting detail that not many people are talking about. It has even faster readout speeds than the FX3, so even better rolling shutter performance. It has 16-bit RAW internally, which is crazy. We finally have open gate at 5K, so everyone whining about open gate for the Sony system, here you go, you finally got it. I'm not trying to be too pessimistic about this. It should have it, so I'm glad that it does. It has dual gain and triple ISO of 800, 4000, and 12800. I think this is a really, really cool thing, and I'll explain why shortly. We've got the same IBIS that we've seen on recent cameras, where it's 5-axis in-body image stabilization, plus active, plus dynamic active. However, it apparently has 2 times the roll compensation that the FX3 does. The demo that Sony gave looked very convincing. Unfortunately, when you shoot in RAW on the FX5, you lose the active and dynamic active stabilization. You only get the mechanical IBIS. That's a real bummer. The internal RAW codec is the XOCN codec, which is the same as like the Venice and the Burano cameras. It's a lighter weight version of those codecs, but same sort of codec as the big cinema cameras, which is pretty awesome. According to Gerald Undone, it has basically the exact same color science as the A7R6, which makes sense because it is the exact same sensor according to him. But instead of having 8K like this camera does, basically they are pixel binning it down to 5K, and then the 4K is oversampled from 5K, which is exactly how the A7R6 operates. It has basically the same dynamic range as the FX3 in the H.264 and H.265 codecs. However, when you're shooting in 16-bit RAW, it has 14 stops, over 14 stops of dynamic range in the medium score, according to Gerald Undone, which means that dynamic range-wise, it's significantly better than the FX3 as long as you are actually shooting in RAW. Now, according to Matty Hapoya, the bit rates for these RAW codecs of the XOCN is 600 megabits per second in the LT, 450 megabits per second in the OC1, and 360 megabits in the OC2, but the H.265 codec on the FX5 is 160 megabits per second as opposed to 100 megabits per second on the FX3. So denser codecs all the way around, and an oversampled image leads to probably a better image and a sharper image, but most certainly if you're shooting in RAW, a more detailed, sharper image with much better dynamic range. We get 120 frames per second in 5K and 240 frames per second in 4K. It has the latest and greatest AI subject detect autofocus, which in the A7R6 is stunning, jaw-dropping autofocus performance. I'm assuming it's gonna be the same autofocus performance as the A7R6 is. It has a new Bionz XR2 processing engine. Now, what's interesting is Sony claimed that the FX5 has matching color science to the Venice and Burano, the big pro cinema cameras. But then Gerald Undone tested it and showed that it had almost identical color science to the A7R6. So does that mean the A7R6 has basically the same color science as the Venice and Burano? That's a very interesting thought. As far as aspect ratios, we get 5K open gate, we get 16:9, we get 17:9, and we get Super 35 in 16:9. You cannot shoot in open gate unless you are in RAW. There's a bunch of interesting caveats about shooting in RAW. You lose a bunch of stuff. We're gonna get there. Now, the XOCN RAW codecs are only available when shooting in the L-Cine modes, so no flexible ISO if you're the type of person that likes to continuously adjust ISO to set your exposure. Can't do this anymore. When you're in the L-Cine modes, just like the FX3, you can only choose between the different base ISOs. However, instead of 640 and 12,800 on the FX3, you do get that 800, 4,000, and 12,800 on the FX5. So much more usable. I don't shoot in L-Cine on the FX3 because that's too limiting. 640 and 12,800 is much too limiting for the way that I personally shoot. So nice to see that there's a third option now. The new XLR H2 handle shoots in 96K at 32-bit float, which I think is the highest resolution audio of any camera internally ever. The XLR handle is also a bit longer, a bit more comfortable. One of my big gripes about the top handle on the FX3. We get an optional EVF viewfinder, so best of both worlds now. There are some people that were really excited about the EVF on the FX2 and some people that don't want it at all, like myself. So nice to see that we have both options now. We finally have the new 4-axis vari-angle screen that the A7 V and the A7R6 have, and it's just the best screen. It just is. This design and being able to have it straight out like this so you can film from below you, just right down in front of you and look straight at the monitor. This is great. And then being able to flip it out so that way you can see yourself. This is the best screen design on the market, in my opinion. It is also significantly larger than any of these cameras, the FX3 or the A7R6. But there is a big miss with this monitor. It is a 16:9 aspect ratio. So that means when you're shooting an open gate in 3:2 open gate, it's chopping the sides off of it to show you that open gate. I think this is a miss. The monitor should have been a little bit bigger, and it should have been a 3:2 monitor, so that way when you're shooting an open gate, you get the full monitor instead of losing monitor when you're shooting an open gate. It kind of seems like that would be more in line with the whole thought process. You're shooting an open gate, so you get the whole sensor, and then you get to see the whole monitor in, I don't know, I feel like that was a miss. But there's even more stuff about open gate and anamorphic support that is a little frustrating to me. We'll get on to that shortly. There's a dedicated button on the back for the Big 6 menu, which is very cool. However, we lose the thumb wheel on the very back of the FX3, and we get a larger dial on the top here, but that, I feel like, I don't know, I'd have to try this. I feel like that's kind of a bummer, because on the FX3, you have the front dial, the rear dial, and the thumb scroll dial. And so the way that I run this is shutter speed or shutter angle, aperture, and ISO. And so I have constant control over all three. So now we only have 2 dials, the front dial and the big top back dial that's new on the FX5. I'll have to use it and see if I like that better or less. The new menus are from the Cine Alta series, which is the same menus as the Burano and the Venice. Cam Mackey in his video said that it was pretty frustrating to use, and I think that makes sense. If you're coming from hybrid cameras like these are, it's a significantly different menu with things in completely different spots. And so mixing and matching FX3s with FX5s are probably going to be frustrating from a menu perspective. However, if you're coming from a bigger cinema camera and you're coming down to the FX5, I think that that's going to make a lot of sense. And I think that this is a big key for how Sony is propositioning this. The FX3 has always been like the step up in video from the hybrid cameras, and I think they're looking at the FX5 as the step down from the cinema line, from the Burano and from the Venice. It has a brand new battery that is the same the NPSA battery. That's the wrong camera. That the new A7R6 has. It is a new battery. I have been very impressed with the battery life on the A7R6. There's a full video on the A7R6 coming soon. By the way, lots of full videos coming. Full video on the A7R6. I finally got the new Typock THI-POC, TIPOC 24 to 50 f2.8 lens. All that's coming, comparisons coming. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet. But the FX5 gets the new battery from the new A7R6, which lets us know that this is the new battery. For moving forward, all full frame cameras are gonna have this new battery. They're abandoning the old battery, and it has more capacity, and it apparently allows them to do more things with processing power and whatnot, so I'm okay with it. Stinks that they're $120 or $130 a piece, and I've got 10 of the old batteries, and now I have to start buying these, but here we are. It also has a new Ethernet port. I am a little unsure of what you would use this for, maybe filming directly to network or something like that. There's a plug-in power port on the side. I'm not exactly sure what this is for. Anamorphic D-squeeze. We finally have comprehensive D-squeezing in camera. So in the FX5, we've got 1.3x, 1.5x, 1.6x, 1.8x, and 2.0 anamorphic D-squeeze right in camera. So you think, yay, we have open gate, we have all the built-in D-squeezes finally in camera. We have RAW in camera. And this is the most frustrating part of this camera to me, because we're so close to the ultimate camera. So close. When you run anamorphic D-squeeze in camera, it turns off autofocus and it turns off IBIS. Now, I think where a lot of the prosumers, people like myself and people probably like you who are watching, I think let me just speak for myself, where I'm trying to go with this whole thing is autofocus anamorphic lenses with D-squeeze in camera and stabilization. Like, that's my personal wish list here. I want to be able to buy anamorphic lenses so that way I get all the character and all the vibes, but I want to be able to shoot just like I'm shooting right now. Full autofocus, seeing the D-squeezed image in real time, and with stabilization. I don't understand why we can't have those things all at the same time. And then when you talk about shooting in RAW, it deactivates the active stabilization. It's like the best combo, in my opinion, especially for me, would be autofocus anamorphic lenses with D-squeeze in camera, in RAW, with active stabilization. Like, to me, that's like just the ultimate thing. Like, that would be the only thing I would shoot in if I could just get that combination of things. So this is a real bummer to me. Now, what I hope is that these things get sorted out in firmware updates. Apparently, the 4K 240 frames per second isn't shipping in the FX5 right now. It's coming in a firmware update in the future. Now, I think as a general rule of thumb, you do not buy electronics based on future promises. You buy electronics based on what they have at the time of purchase, because there's no guarantee, actually, that those future promises will actually happen. So I would not buy this camera based on 4K 240. Hopefully it gets it. I'm sure it will, but, you know, important distinction to make there. Now, am I buying the FX5? This is the real question. Should you buy the FX5? Well, first of all, if you need an additional camera and this hits all the points for you, then yes. Oh, the price is $5,000 here in the US, which makes sense to me. It's got a lot more stuff than the FX3. It has internal RAW and significantly more usable internal RAW from a bitrate per second perspective than like the Nikon ZR. Like, most people that have now had that camera for a while are not shooting in the RAW because the data rates are just so astronomical. So this is a really usable RAW. I so wish that my FX3 had the same tilt vari-angle screen as my A7 IV and my A7R6, because that's just a pain point for me. Once you get used to being able to just flip this out and shoot like that when you're shooting in front of you, going back to this, where you have to flip it out and then turn it down and then film to the side of you and look to this like off axis. Once you have this new flip out 4-axis vari-angle LCD screen, this is a problem. This really kind of sucks to go back to. Now, there's going to be a ton of people that just buy the FX5 because it's the latest and greatest. Good on you. It's going to be an absolutely stunning camera. I think I'm going to wait, and here's why I'm going to wait. I want to see if a firmware update comes where we get at least autofocus during anamorphic D-squeeze in the RAW codec, because I think shooting in the lightest weight RAW codec with an anamorphic autofocus lens and seeing the de-squeezed image already. That's what I would like. So I'm not gonna pre-order this, but I will likely pick one up in the future. Having the A7R6 is satisfying a lot of these needs for me, because especially after watching Gerald Undun's video where he compared the color science, it is almost identical color science. Now the FX5 has even faster readout speeds. That's part of the reason why they use the same sensor, but they're pixel binning it in some way. So that way now they have a fully stacked sensor that is incredible dynamic range when shooting in RAW and insanely fast, even faster than the FX3. No global shutter, but even faster than the FX3 is like, I don't know what more you want. So I will likely buy this camera eventually, but I do want to see a firmware update or two. If that happens, then I will buy it immediately. As soon as those things, that combination of features, if that ever becomes available, I will immediately buy it. And I will likely buy it anyway. Ultimately, what will happen is I will sell my A7 IV that I'm filming on right now. I will sell my FX3 that's sitting in front of me, and I will purchase the FX5. I was slightly disappointed in the autofocus performance of the FX3. It's fine, but it's not anywhere in the ballpark of what the A7 V is or the A7R6 is. The autofocus on these cameras is jaw-droppingly good. It's so unbelievable. And so having this form factor with the other stuff that it would be awesome to have, but with the autofocus of these new cameras, I'm gonna buy it eventually. I'm just not gonna pre-order it and rush out to buy it. I'm gonna take my time, I'm gonna sell these two, and then I'm gonna purchase it. So should you buy it? That is entirely up to you. If it hits all the points that you have, if you have the cash available to you, it seems like it's a really, really great camera. And I'm gonna be pumped to own one day. I'm just not in a huge hurry to rush out and buy it right this minute. I'd love to know your thoughts. Drop them down below. As always, there will be links in the description down below to pick up any of these cameras. If you enjoy the content that I'm doing here on the channel, using those links costs you nothing extra, but it does give me a tiny bit of a kickback and really helps me keep this channel going. So massive, massive thanks to you guys for using those links. Anytime you need to purchase literally any piece of camera or microphones or lighting or anything, it helps out a whole bunch. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.